their East Coast trip.
Lance running out of time, firing into the end zone. Caught. Noah Gintor. Touchdown.
With the perfect record still intact.
Down he goes. Jackson Hankey and Aaron Mercadale both came flying through the A-gap and took him down.
The North Dakota State football team wraps the non-conference slate with UC Davis. The Aggies are no stranger to the Fargo Dome, having made the trip as recently as 2007. But they haven't seen this brand of bison.
Caught! Phoenix Pros at the 28-yard line.
It's a top 5 matchup to wrap up September, and it starts now.
This is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show.
Hello and welcome into the Fargo Dome as North Dakota State gets set to take on UC Davis, the final non-conference game of the season for the Bison, the number 1 ranked Bison, taking on the number 4 ranked UC Davis. Alongside Beth Wool and Kyle Emanuel, we are getting set for some football here today.
Yeah, nice to be back at the Fargo Dome. You know, I keep trying to get really excited for this game. You keep hearing 1 versus 4, and you instantly think this should be a really big deal. This should be 1 versus 4. This should be. This is playoff football. This is what we talk about. This is what we aim for every single season. This is a big matchup to have inside the Fargo Dome. But time and time again, I continue to think, do I really put that much stock in the standings? And I hate to start off the pregame show on such a buzzkill, but at the same time, you kind of have to evaluate. I personally don't put a ton of stock in the standings throughout the season, let alone at this point in the season.
Yeah, but it definitely does not have that feel of a 1 versus 4. And I don't know if that's because of it's UC Davis and Bison fans haven't seen them a lot.
Familiarity.
It's been a while. But also you look at their schedule and who they've played. They lose to Cal. That you kind of see that coming.
Okay.
Then they almost lose to San Diego, who's a non-scholarship. Now, San Diego is not a bad team by any means.
A team that has not had success in this building, right.
But they're still a solid team, but they are non-scholarship, and they should have probably lost that game. And then they beat a Lehigh team who's 0-3. So it's like, okay, you're ranked number 4, but how much stock can we really put into that this early in the season? I think we'll find out today, though.
So funny enough, I talked to some of the players earlier this week, and I asked Ty Brooks, hey, there's been some big games in the Fargo Dome. There has been some excitement surrounding playoff games. SDSU, when SDSU comes here, does this feel like an SDSU week, a big-time week? And he's like, no, feels like we're getting ready to play a non-conference game.
A gentleman who has so much to say
Ty,
often.
Honesty.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't feel like it. I'm sure it will once we, tee it up, kick it off, and we see what they are.
And do ranked opponents, do they garner a little bit more attention when you guys are prepping?
Yeah, I mean, you have to, but
But you give everybody respect.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And that's how NDSU's been good, is because they're consistent week in, week out. But we talked about before the show, how much do you really look at these rankings and really believe in them? I feel like the FCS rankings are a little bit behind of what the FBS ones are.
That's very true.
What I would do when I was a player, you see the ranking maybe, but you go to the film, and this is what you see. And especially as like a D lineman or a quarterback, you look at who you're going against, and that's what you care about. You don't care what the media, the writers think about a team. You care about how good is this team on film and what can they do when they actually play.
And the Aggies do have some key players. We're going to talk about some of those guys as this Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show continues right now. We're going to bring in the rest of our crew.
Yeah, our key players. Let's go down to the field with Brian Sean, Lee Timmerman, and Ryan Gellner. Guys.
Hey, guys, we are 4 minutes into the show, and we haven't uttered the word Jake Mayer yet.
Why?
And I think that's crazy. It is, I think, probably the best quarterback North Dakota State will see this year, certainly to date. He's the real deal, Brian.
He really is. He's a talented player, and he had a great receiver last year by the name of Keelan Doss, who they do not have anymore. And he made a lot of tough plays, but between the 2 guys that he really looks at, Carson Crawford and Jared Harrell, those are 2 guys that are pretty dynamic players. And he takes very deep drops in the pocket. He's got a rocket for an arm. Not the most mobile guy, but anytime you're a 2-time Big Sky Offensive Player of the Year and a preseason All-American, you have to respect that.
And they return a bunch as well from a year ago where they had the explosive offense. I think 7 of the 8 leading receivers are back. 4 offensive linemen return. They haven't gotten their running back going. My point is the offense itself, not just a good quarterback, a pretty good offense.
It certainly is. In our conversations with the coordinators this week, it was a little bit interesting. And I told Coach Braun flat out, I said, I'd much rather be a Bison offensive coach this week than the defensive coach. And then he said, you know how many times I went down to T. Roll's office and said, you guys got to stay on the field. You need to help us out. So yes, NDSU's offense can certainly help the defense today.
Yeah, I think a lot of the talk today will be about the offense although it's going to be whatever defense steps up first. And the question for NDSU's defense, can they get to the quarterback? Things like that. The question for UC Davis's defense, how well will they play against this Bison offense as well? So a lot of answers to come, and we'll uncover some of that as the pregame show rolls on. For now, from the field, we'll go back upstairs to you guys.
All right, thank you very much, guys. So we are going to talk about Jake Mayer because he is a stud, but we're going to talk about how good NDSU's offense has been because they have been efficient through 3 games.
Well, I think that's one of the things that stands out. First of all, this is a Big Sky football team, so you kind of always expect a high-powered offense or rather a lackluster defense, which has to be painful for you to watch in a football game. And I think that's evident. I mean, the 2 stats that really stand out in this one is UC Davis, their points per game, averaging about 30 points per game in their first 3 games. Their opponents 25. NDSU averaging over 40, nearly 50 points per game. Their opponents just 13. And I'm betting. Now, I'm not a betting lady, but I would bet that we're going to see a very similar outcome today in this one as well.
Yeah, whenever you get into that Big Sky conference, like you said, Beth, you start to wonder, can a team like UC Davis, can they hold up against a team like NDSU in the trenches? And I talk about it all the time, and people probably get tired of hearing it, but NDSU, skill-wise, it might be a little more evenly matched when you look at a team like UC Davis, and they do have some really good skill players. But when you look down in the offensive line and defensive line, that's where I want to see, can they hold up? And NDSU's offensive line has definitely held up this year, and their efficiency has been unmatched.
And that's what I think a huge key for redshirt freshman Trey Lance. I don't know that we can say that enough. Redshirt and what he's doing, right? Yeah, so 13 total touchdowns for the young man. He's thrown 9. He has not been intercepted. I'm knocking on wood proverbially here. But he has not been intercepted at all this year. And he's played some good defenses. North Dakota did some things against him that they weren't expecting.
They challenged him.
They challenged him.
And he's the leading rusher, I believe, as
he is the leading rusher.
Yeah. Now, granted, they're kind of divvying out the carries to a lot of people, but the fact that he's throwing the ball this well, he's so young, he hasn't even seen everything he's going to see, and he has, I believe, more touchdowns than incompletions. It's crazy. We're gonna have to keep talking about it until something changes. He's been really good.
Well, and I think that's part that stood out about this offense. Every time you say something about how good Trey Lance is, you're like, oh, and they're also handing it off to so many people.
Right.
Oh, and he's also passing the ball around to numerous different
10
guys.
different receivers last week.
Countless different positions as well. They're hitting the running backs, the tight ends, and the wide receivers. That when you start to really look at this, that's the part that's standing out about this NDSU offense right now, is they're checking every single potential box.
So let's take a look at those numbers. So Trey Lance's quarterback comparison with Jake Mayer, and you'll see they are 2 completely different style of quarterbacks. As we see Trey's numbers here, 542 passing yards, 10 incompletions. Yes, that completion percentage is up near 80%, which is unbelievable.
The 0
unbelievable.
interceptions is also impressive.
Yeah, that's the other one.
And he's throwing the ball.
And he is throwing the ball. Yeah, I mean,
that's
only 49
so
attempts.
Often you look at a young quarterback and you're like, oh, he's got no interceptions. They're throwing safe passes. They're not challenging him. He's not getting it in there anywhere. And he's taking chances. He's making good decisions, though.
But here's the difference between the Bison offense and the Aggies offense. As we take a look at Jake Mayer's numbers, Trey has only thrown the ball 49 times through 3 games. Look at that. 124 attempts for Jake Mayer this year.
But still completing 70% of his passes. That is impressive.
That is impressive, right? But look at those rushing yards. He is not the running quarterback.
Well, that's something that's interesting. He only stands about 6 feet tall, and you think that a guy like that is more mobile, but he is kind of more of a true pocket passer, which you don't see a lot in today's college football.
And what we saw last week was Pat Kehoe as a pocket passer, and Pat Kehoe from Delaware
did not fare well.
Lost his job after last week.
Yeah,
so
124 pass attempts as well. What really stands out to me about that too is how many weapons that UC Davis has as well. We were talking before the game with Lee Timmerman about their tight end, who is just a beast for this team.
Yeah, I think their tight end is nearing 18, 19 touchdowns for his career, and they have weapons all over this field, and that's what we talked about. Can they run the ball, or can they protect their quarterback? If he's going to sit back there, NDSU's pass rush got going last week. They got 7 sacks last week. If they can get after the quarterback, this is kind of a weird team. You almost want to make them one-dimensional to run the ball. Usually it's kind of the opposite.
And even more so, Derek Tuska said after the game last week to head coach Matt Entz that they should have had 10 sacks on that quarterback.
Well, that's what you want to hear from a D-line. That's what you want to hear. They're after that quarterback.
We have plenty to talk about here on the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show. But for now, let's go out to the tailgate lot. We join Mike Morkin. Mike?
All right, thank you so much. We're outside here in the parking lot to play some Bison tailgate trivia. I have two contestants. Yeah, the crowds are fired up here. Let's go with you. What's your name?
Rodney.
Rodney. All right, here we go. We're playing for a gift certificate, $50 gift certificate at Big Irv's, either at Rose Creek or in Horace. You ready?
Yeah.
Were there more people at the Butler game or UND Delaware games combined? More people at the Butler game or UND Delaware? And you can.
I'm going to say there's more at the Butler game.
At the Butler game? Is he right?
Yes.
Of course he is right. At Butler, there were 34,544 if you added up UND and Delaware. 33,412. Rodney, there's your gift card. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Hey, tell Lisa hi from Wiener.
Okay, I will. That's Lisa Badeau. All right, your name, please?
Sue Hendricks.
Sue, and I think you have a player on the team.
I do, James Hendricks.
All right, here we go. Through 3 games, have the Bison scored more rushing touchdowns or pass receiving touchdowns? Rushing or pass receiving?
Bob?
Okay, it's quiet out here.
I think it's rushing.
I would say rushing.
Rushing.
Rushing is correct. 10-9. 10-9. There you go. Thank you so much for playing. How about a cheer for the Bison, huh?
The UC Davis Aggies making their way into the Fargo Dome for the first time since 2007. The last time that the Aggies were here, the guys that were prominent players in that game are now both coaching for their respective teams, which is hilarious
Which
to
is
me.
a pretty cool coincidence to happen. And I love that pride that obviously players have that they want to come back and coach at their alma mater as well. That's really cool to see.
Yeah, they want to come back and coach at their alma mater, Kyle. They want to come back and coach.
No, we like him on
much
TV.
fun with you guys.
Yeah, we don't get him into coaching.
I'll just stay here for a
Yeah,
while.
well, yeah.
We'll see.
Oh my goodness,
We'll see.
Alex.
I'm
Dad.
kidding.
Alex is trying to get rid of me
Yeah,
already.
I know, right?
Yeah, well, no, I'm just
It's only
kidding.
been like 3
Threatened
games.
by your height. That's all.
I am He's taller than me. Look at that. All right, let's get this show back on track. We will learn some more about the UC Davis Aggies. Ryan Gellner catching up with the voice of the Aggies. Ryan?
Yeah, thank you, guys. Scott Marsh is the play-by-play voice of the Aggies. And, Scott, really, when you look at this game, it comes down to the 2 quarterbacks who are both exceptional. What makes your quarterback so good?
Jake Mayer is unbelievable, Ryan. Being a senior, his 3rd year as a starter, first of all, he throws the ball great. He's the FCS equivalent of Drew Brees, and I know that's hyperbole, but that's where you have to start in terms of a comparison. Great leader. Everybody looks to him on the team, not only for on-the-field excellence, but off the field as well. And so he's terrific. It'll be great today. You got the senior Jake Mayer versus the redshirt freshman Trey Lance, so we'll see how that works out.
Defensively, UC Davis averages giving up 25 points a game. Their task, much like the Bison, how do you slow down NDSU's offense? What do you think they do today?
I was going to ask you that question because I don't know how that goes either, and I don't know if our coaches know how that goes. If there's optimism, we held Lehigh, much different team, to 58 yards rushing last week. So the front seven's going to have to be great against an amazing offensive line for the Bison, and that will be a real key.
What do you think the biggest key is in this football game? Is it quarterback play? Is it offense? Is it who makes that first big defensive stop? What's the key in your mind?
Composure. Being able to stay in this environment. And UC Davis has been in enough big games now with making the playoffs last year, going to Montana last year, that environment. I think the team will handle that. But obviously you just can't let the frenzy of this great environment get to you, and the Aggies have to contain that a little bit.
Scott, we really appreciate the time. Have a great call today.
Thanks, Ryan. Great to be with you guys.
Guys, back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Ryan, and thank you to Scott for sharing some insight. Obviously, these teams haven't played each other in a while, but there is some familiarity between the two. They were, at one time, conference foes.
Well, and the value of being able to have your offensive coordinator know that this is a rowdy place and that there's a passionate fan base, just that perspective is really valuable.
Well, and the fact that they have a quarterback that, he's seen everything. He's obviously a great
Montana,
player.
Yeah, you play at Montana.
That's
a tough place, yeah.
I don't think this atmosphere is going to rattle him. Maybe it might be a little bit different than what he's expected, but it's not going to rattle him.
So this is that 2007 game where the Bison had some fun with UC Davis, and it's fun to see There's the old carpet, Kyle, that you used to play on that carpet there. But we get to see some of the fun stuff here. Joe Mays, a predominant figure in this game. And, of course, Tyler Roll, a very big figure in this game, rushing for a couple of touchdowns. So, yes, these two teams, they know each other. They know what it's like to play against each other, but these guys don't.
Right, and this was in their early days of the Great West, and so both teams made that transition into Division I together. They've been on that same trajectory. What I think is different is how different the Bison trajectory has been. You think about the national championships, that national prominence. UC Davis is still trying to get there, and they're kind of knocking at that door now.
Well, yeah, and this is obviously going to be a huge game for them. If they can, we talked about it with UND, but if they can even compete, maybe even have a chance to win this game in the fourth quarter, I feel like that's a huge step forward for this program against a very, very talented Bison team.
Well, and obviously with UC Davis, you know that they've known about this game, and they knew coming in about this game.
Everyone does.
Right.
Every team.
Every team that comes into the Fargo Dome gives NDSU their best shot. So I wanted to talk about the result that they had against San Diego, and I thought this was interesting. I heard it before, but maybe they were overlooking the Toreros. Maybe they were prepping for NDSU and might have thought, well, we can get by against a non-scholarship school just based on our talent.
Yeah, and if you do, that's a sign of a program. That's not what you want, I guess you could say, in a program. You don't want to ever look ahead. We never did that at NDSU, and I promise you they still don't do it today. But yeah, that's definitely a possibility. You would think that they wouldn't. San Diego's in the playoffs every single year. They play team stuff. They beat teams. They beat Cal Poly a couple of years ago. I remember the play. So, I mean.
And it's in state. You figure they'd have to go up against some of the same guys recruiting-wise.
They know about. You'd think they would know about San Diego.
But how much, though, in fall camp would you say that if you knew that you had a team on the schedule, how much would you spend in a fall camp preparing for that team? Obviously you're going to prepare for week one, but you would prepare for teams down the road.
Yeah, you do. You definitely do. You kind of start with the team you're going to play, and then you kind of will look forward. And especially we would even do it in the bye week sometimes, or in the playoffs when you didn't know who you're going to play. You'd have to prep for two different teams. But I think when opponents play NDSU, it's a little bit different. I think they spend like entire spring ball. They spend like a majority of their fall camp just on this one game. So it's interesting because they definitely could have overlooked San Diego and been
well, and can you blame
trip.
them? Again, we talked earlier about those rankings. What you do against NDSU can make or break your season. So if you can hang with NDSU, if you can make an impact, if you can have any realm of a factor against literally, if you can hang with the Bison, that can really affect your playoff position.
But at the same time, you also have to look at the rest of your schedule. And you can't just put all your eggs into one basket and say, we really want to beat NDSU. This is the only game we want to win. Even if you just beat NDSU, you're not going to be in the playoffs. So I think
South Dakota a couple years back,
Exactly. Indiana State, I mean, so it's happened. But I think UC Davis, hopefully, they understand the importance of this game. They know it's a big game. It's a good time. It's a big time opponent. But they have to be able to win next week, and they have to continue this if they really want to get to where they obviously want to go.
Well, and I think this team is confident. We talked last week in the Delaware game about how they were kind of talking this weird conversation about how they were preparing for this game, and the tone was kind of odd about NDSU's strengths, and then Delaware, we're just gonna try and do our best.
It was our world versus their world.
Yeah, our world versus their world was the catchphrase, and it was very odd. I think UC Davis has a very different mentality. They very much believe that they can come in, and they should, because they do have two very strong sides of the ball. It's just, can they again hold up?
And Davis's head coach is Dan Hawkins, who knows a thing or two about shocking the world when he was at Boise State. He had a run at Colorado, but he knows a thing or two, and they want this game. UC Davis wants to play NDSU.
Yeah, I don't think there's an ounce of fear coming in here. They didn't look intimidated. They walked in. You can kind of tell. You can see it in their eyes. And I think that's my question. Is there a look in somebody's eye when they're taking on the Bison of like, oh, wow, this is it?
Oh, absolutely. I remember when we played Georgia Southern the second time. So we played them 2011 in the playoffs, and we beat them. They came back in that second year, and I think they were out when we run out the tunnel. They're already out there. They're like staring at us. The lights come on, and they're already over. And we're like, whoa, like this is
that's different.
This is a different team. Like, we are in for a dogfight, and it was a dogfight.
Yeah.
And there's definitely something different, like you said. But when teams are talking about like, oh, we just hope we can hang in there. Hopefully, as a ball bounces our way here, it's like, all right, that game's not gonna. But we come in here. This team is confident. They have the skill to match up. I think we'll find out. It's going to be a good game. I'm excited to see what UC Davis can do.
Very exciting game on hand, and we've got more of the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show right after this.
You.
It's definitely him.
No,
it's the
not.
eyes.
I'd say me.
Okay, yeah, I don't like
How do we?
spiders or snakes or anything like that.
Trey.
Yeah, probably.
Without a doubt.
I gotta agree with that one. Ooh.
If we were together, that'd be good.
Yeah, we're probably pretty similar on that
Yeah.
one.
Me.
Yeah, definitely. Derek Tuska.
Tuska.
Zeb. Zeb Eli.
He says it right at least.
Oh, for sure, man. I do not do outdoors. I need a hotel, running water. I need all that. Me. Yeah,
it's
me. I can't park.
I can't park.
Me.
He's got the shoe game.
Me.
Trey. Me.
Oh yeah.
I'd say me. Trey.
Yeah.
He can't hold it together.
Yeah.
Welcome back out to the Fargo Dome. Let's go down to Ryan Gelner standing by with our Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine injury report. Ryan?
Thank you, guys. Dr. Bruce Pyatt joins us again this week. And this week we're talking something pretty interesting, and it's where technology has gone in college football and big-time football. You actually can take sweat from a player's body, test it, and then it shows you a couple of things that you need to know on game day.
Yeah, if you look at individuals in the middle of a game and they start to cramp up, that can be really problematic for them, for the team, and for everybody. So nobody likes that. So whatever we can do to try to prevent that from happening, that's going to be the best thing by far. Once they've cramped, it's really tough to try to get that solved and keep them back on the field continuously after that point. So we do everything we can, including looking at which kids are going to be higher or more prone to having cramping problems, and we think it's the people who are losing more electrolytes, sodium, calcium, those type of things. You need sodium, calcium, potassium, those type of things in your muscle cells for them to fire and work normally, and they cross the membranes, and in some people it happens at a much higher concentration.
And so you take that bead of sweat from my forehead or from my arms, you test that, and you can find things like potassium and what I'm actually sweating out of my body. Take it and use it. It's a pretty cool process. There's two types of players. Some, I would assume, that sweat mostly water, and then some that sweat out the good stuff that you need and that your muscles need.
Yeah, you see the big Rams, the big linemen who are sweating like crazy, but interestingly, a lot of times we find they're sweating mostly water, and that's fairly easy to replenish. You just keep hydrating them with water and fluids throughout the day, throughout the game, and they'll usually do okay. You don't see a lot of linemen cramping up. It's really those fast twitch muscles in more of the specialized players that may be losing more of their electrolyte content, and we see that with the sweat testing that we do. So we'll take those athletes and try to give them a higher concentration of sodium, of potassium, and those type of things beforehand to try to stay ahead of the game. And a lot of times we'll just take your basic electrolyte drink and we'll supercharge it basically. So we'll add salt content to it and let them drink it. It tastes a little bit salty, but they like it if they're not cramping up.
All right, let's open that thing up. I'm going to take a swig of this. Is the supercharged.
You're going to guzzle the whole thing here, right in front on national TV here.
It's definitely salty. Definitely salty. It's interesting where technology has taken us, and this is just one of the ways that North Dakota State and other college teams across the country are dealing with sweat that comes out of the body and somehow needs to be replaced. Interesting stuff. Thank you so much for your time. We'll find something fun to talk about in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good. I hope I don't have to treat you in the middle of the game now.
You shouldn't have. Ooh, that is salty. You shouldn't have to. Back to you.
He's going to need that actually here in just a couple seconds. Let's take a look at our Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine injury report for the guys that are listed, same as last week, really. And Dimitri Williams, we found out, is out for today.
Yeah, and you know what? I think it's indicative of where the Bison are right now when it comes to their running backs. They've got plenty of depth. They're being able to give Dimitri time to really heal and get back into this game. I love this decision because I don't love to see when a team has to force people back, and I love love seeing them being able to give him the time, because Matt Entz has said this is him having to take care of himself and manage his own injury.
Yeah.
And so being able to see them give him this rest and this time to get healthy so that hopefully he can make it a long run with the Bison back to Frisco.
Yeah, James Hendricks, the other player listed. We do expect James to play today. We expect him to start, in fact. He was out last week with the concussion. Missed half of the game against UND as well, with the symptoms, but he is back healthy and should be in the lineup today.
And will be important today as well.
Yeah, will be important today because of his tackling ability. And that is something we're going to learn a little bit more about. Let's go down to the field with Ryan Gellner and Kyle Emanuel standing by, going to teach us how to tackle, guys.
Yeah, guys, jackets off for this segment because it does and can get a little bit physical. 234 tackles, 35 and a half sacks for this guy. For this guy right here in a Bison uniform. Last week, North Dakota State, when they graded out the film, had 7 what they call critical missed tackles, and so the Bison have to figure out how can they tackle better today. And my question, I guess, to you is, how do you tackle when they don't like you to tackle in practice? How do you work on it when you can't do it?
Tackling is unique, right? Because it's one of the most basic fundamentals of football, but it's also one of the most hard things to actually practice without getting hurt. So there's different things. They're coming out with these foam rolls and things like that you can run around and tackle. But I think, what Coach Entz probably did this week is you do what you call thud. So you go to practice, you wrap, everything's live, it's full contact, you wrap up, but you're not bringing anyone to the ground, and you have to practice your fundamentals more because you can't dive at legs, you can't just trip them up. In the practice team, they're trying to make you miss. So that's the fundamentals of tackling, right? That's the arms coming through, staying low, that everyone knows about. But what I want to talk about is called keeping the cup, and maybe a good missed tackle. I know, right? You can have a good missed tackle and a bad missed tackle. So Coach Entz talks about, or probably you talked about in the NFL, Gus Bradley talked about it, and you talk about keeping the cup. Now, what is that? Usually there's 3 elements. Ryan, you and I are going to do it by ourselves here. There's only 2 of us. We're going to pretend you at home are like we're the ball carriers, right? So we're coming at you. Now, what you want to do is called long stride, short stride. When you get to them, you're sprinting, you want to take away grass. A lot of people think you want to break down, right? You sit in a chair, and that's when you get beat. That's when you get juked out. So if we're coming at the guy and we have our leverage, right? So when you talk about a bad missed tackle, my leverage right now, if I'm coming at the camera right here, is I want to make this tackle with my left shoulder. If I come across the tackler's body and I take a shot this way and I miss, I effectively take you out of the play. Right now, you can do nothing. What you want to do here is you want to take what we call a sprint tackle, and you're going to sprint tackle through your leverage, and I want to make this a left shoulder tackle. That way, if I miss, you're there to make the play. And normally, like I said, there's only 2 here. You got your fill player here, you got your pursuit player, and then you got the middle part of the cup, and that's what you call the cup. It's usually a 3-part thing. So I know that's a lot of information right there, but these cups can form all over the place. It's usually 3 guys. It can be a D lineman, it can be a safety, linebackers. They come all over the place, and it's all about leverage and making a good missed tackle versus a bad missed tackle, and trusting your teammates and doing your job.
And a lot of it, I would assume, is you've got to just have a feel where your teammate is, because you're not looking around when you're going to make a tackle. You got to know where your teammate is.
You're exactly right. You're not going, okay, here's the cup, here's the 3 parts. You just have to know where the ball carrier is, obviously where they're going, and find your leverage and sprint through that leverage. That way you make, like I said, you're either making the tackle or you're forcing it to your help. And it's all that's what NDSU preaches. It's all about effort. It's getting to the ball, and it's gang tackling, and it's tackling as a team, not as an individual.
Between you and me, I'd rather have you make that tackle and not miss, because then it's all on me.
Hey, Ryan, there was rumors that I was going to tackle you live on air, but I'm not going to do that. At least not this time. Maybe next time.
There won't be a next time. When we come back, more from the pregame show. We're getting ready for UC Davis and North Dakota State. We'll be back right after this.
This is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show.
All right, we're out here in the tailgate section, and we're playing for Big Irv's gift certificates, $50. We thank Big Irv's. My first contestant is?
Bill Kuzis.
Bill, are you ready? Nobody's gotten this wrong in 3 years.
I'm not going to be the first.
All right, here we go. Noah Gindorf has caught 3 touchdown passes so far this year for the Bison. Overall, how many passes has he caught? Is it 3 or 6?
3.
3 is correct.
All
3 passes are 4 touchdowns. He's off to a great start, and so are you. There's your $50 gift card. All right. And your name?
Thank you. I'm Kathy Nelson.
Kathy, you were nervous in wanting to, not wanting to sign up for this, but we talked you into it, right?
Okay, right.
All right, here we go. Who holds the NDSU Bison all-time record for tackles for loss? Is it Kyle Emanuel or Phil Hansen?
It's Phil Hansen.
Okay, it's Phil Hansen, she says, but let's think about it a little harder.
It's Kyle. I was just warming up with that first answer.
All right. It is Kyle Emanuel. Yes. Kyle Emanuel's number 1. Don Myers number 2. Jerry Dahl's number 3. And Phil Hansen is number 4. But you got it correct. There's your $50 gift card.
I was just yanking your chain.
Yanking my chain. All right. All right. How about a cheer as we take it back into the Fargo Dome?
Well, thank you very much, Mike. We are back field side. Brian Sean, Lee Timmerman. They will call today's game, and it should be a good one between UC Davis and North Dakota State. Let's get right into our keys to the football game. And we start with key number 1, and it is focused on the quarterback, Jake Meyer, for UC Davis. In 2018, compared to 2019, you see his numbers. He was really good last year, and he is off to a great start this year. 65% last year, 69% this year. Already 6 touchdowns this year. Jake just has it, whatever it is, Brian.
He just understands their offense so well. He executes so well. He makes good decisions. Over 8,500 career yards. He has a chance to break every single record they have at UC Davis before it's all over. Chasing the great J.T. O'Sullivan, which some of us might remember from the good old days, in the Division II days. So this is an interesting challenge for North Dakota State. Not the most mobile guy, but a guy I think that can beat you if you bring pressure. So you have to be a little calculating how you handle that.
Yeah, you mentioned the mobile part, and here's what I have for notes. He had minus 21 rushing yards, including sacks in 2017, minus 17 rushing yards in 2018, and has minus 40 rushing yards so far this year. If the Bison can keep him in the pocket, they've got a shot.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the key. And he takes really deep drops. I think if you notice, if you something you pay attention to early in the game, he'll catch the ball in the shotgun and he'll take 7 steps back from there. So he'll be 10 to 12 yards deep in the backfield where he sets up. They also move his launch points around quite a bit. He's never throwing from the same platform, it seems like. So that's something North Dakota State will be a challenge for them, especially early in the game until they get a cadence.
Key number 2 goes to what Kyle Emanuel and I just talked about, and that simply is tackling. 7 critical missed tackles a week ago.
And the interesting thing I want to attack on this is something that Grant Olson and I talked about earlier this week from the linebacker group. And one of the things he wants his linebackers to do is to show a gap, but don't totally commit to that gap. Show and then back off and then fall into the second gap. Now the only, and float a gap over and get in a tackle. Now the only way that works is if the defensive line does its job. The Bison want the defensive line to funnel that runner into a particular spot so they can get another hat to that particular run fit. A little bit different.
Makes sense to me. As long as you can get after things and make tackles, it sure makes sense. Number 3 on our keys to the game is a stat that stood out to me. Look at NDSU's offense. So far this year on 3rd down, they've converted 58%. UC Davis has the all-star quarterback, and they're just at 37%. That sticks out to me, Brian.
It does stick out, but here's something to keep in mind. Just because you get UC Davis to not convert a 3rd down does not mean they will not go for it on 4th down. Last week, UC Davis went for it 9 times on 4th down and got 6 of them. So it's not an offense that's afraid to keep that group on the field and try to convert. That's something that for North Dakota State they're going to have to be aware of. It's not going to be an automatic punting situation on 4th down this week.
Should be a good, interesting football game that we haven't talked a lot about the defense, Lee. And defensively, other than tackling, it'll be a test for North Dakota State behind the linebackers. That secondary is going to get tested today.
It will be the first big test, I think, for that secondary. I mean, it's good to have James Hendricks back. He's the captain back there from that safety position. But they have a guy who I think is sneaky good. There's a tight end. He wears number 87. Priest is his name, and he is underrated as a target, I think, for Mayer. We talk a lot about some of the things he does, but look for him against the safeties. I think that'll be a really key battle tonight.
It can't be underrated what we saw in our injury report as well. North Dakota State really down just one guy, two if you count Jake Reinholtz at kicker, but really just one guy from the beginning of the season, which they'll take at this point.
If they can get through non-conference play with here, get to the bye week, get everybody healed up, and then you start off at Illinois State and Valley play, critical to get this win, but also keep people healthy, and then get whoever isn't healthy back healthy by the time Valley play gets going.
Yet, it all comes back to quarterback play. North Dakota State has got a good one. UC Davis has a good one as well. That's how I open the conversation with the Bison head coach, Matt Entz. We'll listen to that now. Coach, I assume when you look at game film, it really starts and ends with their quarterback. He's pretty good.
He is. Excellent talent. He's been in the system now under Coach Hawkins for 3 years. He's comfortable back there. He understands the offense, does a nice job of getting them in and out of their tempo. And real efficient with the football. Doesn't get sacked, doesn't take sacks, gets rid of the football, is willing to throw it away and make some veteran moves so they don't ever get behind the chains. And then he just has an extremely strong arm, can make all the throws.
He's got a ton of receivers returning from last year's team, 4 offensive linemen back, a running back who hasn't got going yet. They want to get him going. Their offense is pretty good.
They are. They're everything you would think from a Coach Hawkins offense, and they have big play capabilities. They can run the football. They do a nice job asking their own linemen to be stretch players and to try to push everything horizontally and then get vertical and cut back on you. So and then the receivers, you're right. He has great continuity with all of them having playing time previously. So our defense is going to have their work cut out for them.
If I know the Bison defense, I know that you'll try to get after the quarterback today and somehow disrupt him. Have you quite figured out how you're going to get after him today?
I think we have a couple plans, a couple different options. Can we do it with 4 down? Do we have to bring a 5th? What's going to be the best way to do it? Can we disrupt him just with some different looks pre-snap versus post-snap? All those things are yet to be seen because, the teams that he's played, a lot of them have been just big zone teams and the receivers run to open areas and he can get it to them. So we need to disrupt the receivers. We need to try to get to his feet a little bit and make him uncomfortable in the pocket.
1 versus 4. It's a big game on the FCS landscape. It's a big game for things later. It's obviously a big game today.
It is. It's the biggest game of the week, and so our kids. I know our kids are going to be excited about it. They've heard and they know that the explosiveness of Cal Davis's offense. Cal Davis has some really good defensive players as well. We challenged our offense to stay on the field. We got to be great on 3rd downs on both sides of the football.
Good luck today.
Thank you.
18 minutes to kick off here in the Fargo Dome. Still to come, Herdline News, our final thoughts, and a tip of the hat to a young Bison fan who lost his life. We'll do that after this. Top-ranked North Dakota State and 4th-ranked UC Davis, the only top 5 matchup in the country. And it's time now for Herdline News. The Bison have won 24 consecutive games, the 3rd longest streak in FCS history, 9 shy of their own record of 33 straight wins from 2012 to 2014. NDSU's Kobe Johnson rushed 11 times for 101 yards and a touchdown last week against Delaware, becoming just the 7th NDSU true freshman to record a 100-yard rushing game, the first since Seth Wilson ran wild in 2017 in a playoff game against Sam Houston. Speaking of true freshmen, kicker Griffin Crosa was named the Missouri Valley Special Teams Player of the Week after making 5 extra points and field goals from 46 and 23 yards a week ago. He's 17 of 17 on extra points, and he's 3 of 3 on field goals through the first 3 weeks. Finally, we stop to pay tribute to one of NDSU's biggest fans who's watching this afternoon's game from the best seat in the house, high above the Fargo Dome. 12-year-old Landon Solberg from West Fargo, who had been battling an aggressive form of brain cancer for 2 years, died earlier this week. Landon was one of NDSU's biggest fans. His story touched the community and reached across the nation. His smile and his braveness were absolutely courageous. His faith, along with his positive attitude and his strength, are what people saw in the young man. Carson Wentz and his AO1 Foundation became very close to Landon over the last 2 years. Carson tweeting, "Landon's faith has been an inspiration to me. Through his battle with cancer, his hope in Jesus never wavered. So honored to have known this special young man." Former Bison Ben LeCompte in part said, "Fargo lost its strongest, most courageous resident today." But it was Bison men's basketball team that Landon was closest to. NDSU players put Landon's light on the national stage. The basketball team tweeting that a few weeks ago they gave him a 2019 Summit League championship ring, saying, "We are all better because of the example that he set for us." Bison basketball coach Dave Richmond tweeting, "Thanks, Bud, for being an unbelievable example for everything that is right in this world. To you and your amazing family, we love you." Senior Vinny Shahid saying, "Thanks for everything, little bro. You taught me so much about character." And even a tweet from rival South Dakota State, the Jacks saying, "Today, the world is less bright. Solberg family, Jackrabbit Nation is thinking about you." And Solberg family, we are all thinking about you and praying for you. Let's remember this. Landon's cancer did not define him. His strength, his courage, and his light is what defined that young man. Stuart Scott once said, "When you die, it does not mean that you lose to cancer. You beat cancer by how you live, why you live, and in the manner in which you live." Landon Solberg made us all better people, and because of that, his light will always shine bright. We'll be back.
Welcome back to the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show. Brian, Sean, Kyle, Emmanuel, and Lee Timmerman with you up high in the booth for today's contest as we take a look at the Bobcat heavy lifting report.
Yeah, Brian, I'm going with Kobe Johnson today, and I love this guy because, well, first of all, he's number 24. Kobe Bryant was one of my favorite athletes, and that's kind of what caught my eye. But he's been impressive on the field, no doubt. They're running the ball. NDSU is committed to running the ball. I look for Kobe to have a big game today.
Well, and that plays off, too. What I think is a big advantage for NDSU would be that offensive line. Yep. I think the Bison, no matter who they play this year, is going to have a better offensive line. And when that's the case, you got guys like Kobe in your heavy lifting report that could have big games and key games against these teams the Bison will play.
We're so used to seeing North Dakota State just pound A-gap power over and over and over. But right now, you'd have to say outside zone has probably been their most effective play so far early in the year. And Kobe does a good job with that.
Yeah, he's one of those guys I like to call a change-up back. You know, he's not a guy you're going to go pound the ball in there 30, 40 times up in the middle, but he can do a lot of things, especially in the passing game. You get him out on the edge. He has been, like I say, he's been really impressive this year. They was talking maybe he's going to redshirt, but I don't think he's going to do. He's going to be out there. He's helping this football team win games here in 2019.
Part of the reason C and D is open, though, is because teams have really concentrated on taking away that A-gap. So once that does open up, you'll see Tyler Roll go to it often.
Well, North Dakota State getting set to enter in front of a sold-out crowd here today of nearly 19,000 on hand to witness it. Two top 5 teams, number 4 UC Davis against number 1 North Dakota State. North Dakota State 3-0 on the season, taking on UC Davis, and then a bye week next week before Valley play begins. And you can't place enough emphasis on how important it is to get off to a good start here today against a fast offense.
Yeah, I mean, this like I think we talked about it all day, but this quarterback is the best quarterback they've seen. And I think this is the best team that they've played. They've kind of taken a step up each week, starting with Butler, UND, and Delaware. I think this is the best team. And this is going to be a test for that NDSU defense. So, the pass rush got going a little bit last week with that 7 sacks, and I think that's going to be key again. And we'll see what they can do here.
We'll step aside to be back to wrap up the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show from the Fargo Dome after this.
inside the Fargo Dome. 1 minute 50 seconds on our Coors Light countdown clock. Let's get the final thoughts of our crew before North Dakota State and UC Davis.
Davis quarterback Jake Mayer is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He's a favorite for the Walter Payton Award, and he returns a slew of wide receivers from a year ago. He's also got 4 offensive linemen back. If the Bison can get after him today, again, they had 7 sacks last week. If they can get after Mayer today, I think it changes this game. But the question is, can they get to the quarterback, and can they get him to the ground? A guy that was good at that? How about you, Kyle?
Thanks, Ryan. I know we've talked about him a lot today, but I think UC Davis quarterback Jake Mayer is a big emphasis for me today, and how well the Bison defense, and especially the secondary, can contain him. He's easily the best quarterback this defense has seen this year. Can NDSU defensive coordinator David Braun dial up some things, maybe get some pressure like you mentioned, and disrupt him this game? I really want to see what the secondary can do. They've played really well so far this season. They've jumped out to me, but what can they do today against the best quarterback that they've seen?
My final thought going into this game is to see how North Dakota State attacks UC Davis on the offensive side with the run game. Outside zone has been marvelous so far in the first 3 games for North Dakota State, attacking on the perimeter. We'll see if they go more inside and try to attack that A-gap here today.
Well, the Davis offense really wants to play fast, and especially if it's going well, it's called tempo. One thing the Bison defense can do to try to slow that tempo down, and look for this. Whenever the Davis offense substitutes a player, the Bison defense is allowed to bring a guy or 2 on the field. When they do, they will try to do it as slow as the referees will allow. Try and break that tempo just a little bit. Some of that game within a game that I love about football.
All right, thanks, guys. That's enough talking from us. Let's tee it up and play. Number 1, North Dakota State. Number 4, UC Davis, happening right now.